As we pass the midway point of the season for the Chicago Bulls and seeing the current state of what this team is sitting at, well below 500, 5 games below 500, 10th in the Eastern Conference, a lot of bad losses, and really not the best outlook for the future given the uncertainty whether Lonzo Ball will in fact return this season, and the fact that they're going to be shipping their first round pick this year to the Magic unless it falls in the top 4. It is, without question, the Bulls absolutely need to make a big trade by the trade deadline before things start spiraling out of control, because even when things start to look up and it looks like the Bulls are about to turn their season around, they followed up with bad losses. 2 bad teams. And even though it's been said the front office is expected to remain relatively quiet at the trade deadline, it doesn't stop us fans from wanting to see more and discussing the trades we really want to see. So in this video, we're going to be discussing the trade we need to see the Bulls make if they at all have a chance at saving their season. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, I do want to be clear from the jump that this trade proposal, or strategy if you will, is not a blow it up scenario for the Bulls, even though at this point I do think it's a viable strategy. And I'm going to be honest, it probably makes the most sense for the Bulls given their limited draft capital and assets that they have to work with for the future. But at the end of the day, we all know the front office isn't going to blow things up. There's no way, not after completely overhauling the roster, making all of these win now moves, giving up future assets, continuing to preach continuity, to then just blow it up a year later and admitting defeat. I'm not saying that's the right approach to take, because sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and realize when you made a mistake, but this front office isn't going to do that. Not this early anyway. So bear that in mind when you're watching this, because I'm sure there will be some that will say this doesn't really help the Bulls or move the needle that much, especially for the future, which yes, might be true, but this is where the Bulls find themselves and figuring out a way to try and get back on track with the main core that they have. So what do the Bulls need more than anything? And it's a lot of things, but they need shooting, arguably their biggest need. And I'm talking about a sharp shooting specialist, because yes, I realize the Bulls have shooters in Zach Lavine and Coby White, and even Lonzo if he comes back, but I'm talking about a sharp shooter who is consistent, something the Bulls don't have, and can play off the ball in a catch and shoot role that helps space the floor and draw defenses and double teams away from DeMar and Zach. So yes, DeMar and Zach are not being included in this trade. And then the other big need, rim protection, or really interior defense as a whole. Vooch and Drummond are great at what they do in terms of being elite rebounders, but when it comes to their overall defense in the paint, reading switches, staying on their man, defending in the post, they're not the best. So shooting and rim protection. So with that long-winded intro, here is what the trade would look like that I think would drastically improve the Bulls, at least in the short term. Long term is a different story, but long term things aren't looking good for the Bulls anyway. So the Bulls receive Myles Turner and Buddy Hield from the Pacers in exchange for Nikola Vucevic, Patrick Williams, and Coby White. Now I know some of you guys are thinking like, dude, how many trade proposals are you going to do that include Myles Turner? Like, you've been doing this since last year. And yes, I know, but it's partly because Turner has literally been in trade rumors for damn near 3 years now. And I think he would be an incredible fit on the Chicago Bulls. The biggest difference here from before is the fact that I've finally included Patrick Williams in a trade package, because while I still have high hopes for Pat, I'm still not out on him yet, like a lot of other Bulls fans who are thinking he's a bust and won't amount to anything. I am starting to lose some patience, and I'm having a hard time seeing Patrick Williams turning into this star player that we were all hoping he would be when he was drafted. And honestly, the other reason is, without including Patrick Williams, it makes trade packages very difficult to complete without his salary and, of course, his value. I'm not saying Pat has immense trade value, but relative to some of the other guys on the Bulls roster, the fact that he's young, a former number 4 pick, an athletic defender who also has the ability to improve on the offensive end, makes him an attractive piece for teams who are looking to build for the future. And then with Coby White, I mean, Coby has actually improved a lot of aspects of his game. Like, we need to acknowledge that and give credit where it's due. He's improved his defense, which I never thought I would say. He hustles much more on that end of the floor. He's improved his overall ball handling and his ability to slash to the basket, and he's become a much better passer. Still a very inconsistent player, and at the end of the day, he's the Bulls' most likely trade target on the move, because the Bulls already have too many backcourt players as it is, and given he's going to be a restricted free agent, and it's hard to envision him in the Bulls' long-term plans given they extended Zach, Lonzo is still under contract, and hopefully he returns to the player that he used to be. And then Caruso is also under contract, who the front office has said is untouchable, which, by the way, yes, I know they have also said Pat is untouchable, which I get why they would say that, but every player has a price. Let's not try and act like he wouldn't be moved in a trade for the right package. And then for Vucevic being included in this trade, here's my thing about Vooch, because I've always said He's one of the better players on this roster that gets unfair criticism, and he's actually having an underrated season when you look at his overall production and on-court, off-court numbers, especially compared to last season. And I personally think moving on from Vucevic would be a mistake because you're losing an immense amount of rebounding that the Bulls need. Like, let's not forget just how bad the Bulls were at rebounding before they made the trade for Vucevic. And while I've had trades in the past not including Vucevic, in this instance, you have to include him. For a couple of reasons, mainly for salary matching purposes, as Buddy Hield and Myles Turner are making pretty sizable salaries. 2, if you're going to trade for Myles Turner, it's going to be hard to pair Turner and Vucevic together in the front court. I do think you can make it work, which I've talked about in the past because Turner has played power forward for about 8% of his total career games. It's not like it's something that he would be completely unfamiliar with, but it would be an adjustment, and then you would also have to counter what it would mean for Vucevic and his role with effectively another center. I think it would make it probably too challenging. Now the question is, would the Indiana Pacers go for this? Because the word around the league is they're wanting draft picks for these guys if they are to move them in a trade. The most rumored package that's been talked about is the one in which the Pacers would send both Turner and Hield to the Lakers in exchange for Westbrook and 2 first-round picks in 2027 and 2029. I honestly don't see that deal getting done because at this point, the Lakers are more than halfway through the season of getting out of Westbrook's bad contract. Why give up 2 first-round picks to get him off the books when you already don't have many picks to work with for the future anyway? And you already know Turner is going to be a free agent this offseason, and that Hield is also going to be on an expiring deal going into next season, so he'll be easier to acquire in a trade. I just don't see it happening, but even still, does Vucevic, Patrick Williams, and Coby White get it done for the Pacers? Is it enticing enough of a deal, and is there a better option that other teams would be willing to shell out? Well, it's interesting because the Pacers are one of these teams that was thought to be in the tank for Wembanyama sweepstakes, finishing 13th in the East last year. They traded away Malcolm Brogdon in the offseason. They moved on from Karis LeVert at the deadline last year, in addition to Domantas Sabonis, to get young and up-and-coming players like Tyrese Halliburton. The thought was they're going to be in a full-blown rebuild, and they'll eventually trade Turner and Hield as a result. Then, I don't know, they started performing incredibly well. Well, I shouldn't say incredibly well, but relative to their preseason expectations. They were expected to win 24 games this year, and here we are halfway through the season, and they're already at 23. They're currently sitting 7th in the East and playing really good basketball, so it makes you wonder, are they even wanting to give up some of their better players when things are looking decent for them now, and because they've also won way too many games to even be close to getting the #1 pick or even a top 5 pick at this rate? But even despite their success they've had so far this season, the Pacers are still looking to continue building for the future, getting more picks and or younger players. And with this trade, while it doesn't give them any draft picks, it does give them 2 young players, and 2 young players that actually serve a need on their roster. Patrick Williams gives them depth in the front court, which they don't have a ton of, and while they do have quite a few guards, this gives them an extra shooting option off the bench, which they're going to need, especially considering they're giving up Buddy Hield in this trade deal, who is their best shooter. For the Bulls, I mean, the benefits are clear here. You add an elite shot blocker and rim protector who is much younger than Vucevic, in the peak of his prime at 26 years old, and Myles Turner. He fits the timeline with Zach Lavine. Turner is having one of his best seasons of his career on both ends of the floor, and that he really upped his game on offense, scoring over 17 points per game so far on 55% shooting, and over the last couple of seasons, he's improved his outside shooting. This season, averaging a career best 38% from 3 on near 4 attempts per game. He's also averaging a career high in rebounds at 8 a game. So yes, you lose rebounding and passing with Vucevic, as Turner isn't the best playmaker in the paint as someone like Vucevic is, but you also gain shot blocking, overall rim protection, and defense in the paint, and more efficient finishing at the rim, and about an equal 3-point shooting ability between the two. And then for Buddy Hield, I mean, say what you will about him as a player who doesn't really, contribute to winning in his career, as most people like to talk about, but you also have to remember he hasn't really been on good teams with the best players around him for most of his career. And all of that aside, you can't deny he's one of the best pure shooters in the game of basketball right now. And he's having one of the best seasons shooting from downtown, shooting 43% on over 9 attempts per game. That is elite 3-point shooting. We're talking Steph Curry level efficiency from deep. I'm not saying he's like Steph Curry, so don't go crazy on me in the comments. I'm simply comparing their 3-point shooting and the level of efficiency for which Hield is shooting the ball right now. For context, Hield is currently 9th in the league in 3-point shooting. But those ahead of him are shooting the ball on far less volume, with the exception of Steph Curry. He's leading the league in 3-pointers made and 3-pointers attempted, and still, obviously, putting up 43% shooting from 3. The biggest challenge to this trade, of course, is the fact that The fit with Hield alongside Lavine and DeRozan would be questionable, unless Hield is willing to take on a bit of a lesser role, likely getting less shot attempts and touches, and it's going to make his role constrained even further whenever Lonzo Ball comes back, which at that point, he may even have to take a role off the bench, and being that scoring spark in the second unit the Bulls were hoping Coby White was going to be. Would Hield be willing to take on that kind of role? Maybe. And then the other challenge with the trade is Myles Turner is on an expiring contract and you don't know if you're going to be able to retain him, especially considering him and the Pacers haven't been able to reach an agreement on a contract extension, so he's likely looking for a pretty big payday. Would the Bulls be able and willing to give him a contract extension for that much money without losing him in free agency and effectively getting him on a half-year rental? And I know some will say, well, why not just wait and get Turner as a free agent instead of trading assets to get him? But the advantage of getting him in a trade is you get his bird rights to be able to use his contract extension to operate over the cap, giving you more cap flexibility as a team. And you also don't know if he's actually going to get moved to another team in a trade anyway, or just sign with another team as a free agent that gives him a more compelling offer. There's just no guarantee you would be able to make a deal work in landing him in free agency. But yes, the last thing you want to do is trade for pieces for Turner and then lose him for nothing in free agency. But at the same time, Vucevic is also an expiring deal, and it's possible you would have lost him for nothing anyway, so you can view it as a sunk cost at that point. But that's the trade I would love to see the Bulls make. Obviously, there are other more controversial, a bit more outlandish trade ideas that I would also like to see if you want to get really creative and include DeMar and Zach in some deals, but they're not as realistic. I don't see the front office moving either of those guys at this point. But either way, I actually want to hear from you guys. What is the ideal trade you would like to see the Bulls make by the deadline? Let me know in the comments, and I'll do a video reacting to some of these trades leading up to the deadline. Until then, guys, as always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.